So I mentioned at the start of the show, we have a great guest joining us. He's joining us by Skype, so we'll see him in just a moment. He, I believe, has joined me on the show before. He is the president and CEO of the Center for Security Policy, Fred Fleitz. Long history in the intelligence community world, so we're going to hear a lot about that. But I want to welcome to the show, Fred Fleitz. Hello, sir.
Hey, Debbie, good to be here.
Good to see you, sir. Well, you have been writing a lot recently. So first of all, I know you took over Center for Security Policy. I'm not sure when it was. Over a year ago, I think now. How long have you been president of Center for Security Policy?
I would have been president a year in January. Before that, I worked for President Trump at the National Security Council as executive secretary. And I had other careers in my 25 years in the government with CIA, DIA, State, and the House Intelligence Committee staff.
Yep, but now you're back with Center for Security Policy. I'm so glad you're there. So I want to just jump in. You wrote a piece that I thought was really powerful, and I want to just have you talk about what you're getting at. But the piece was titled Obamagate, How the Obama Administration Apparently Weaponized Intel Agencies for Political Attacks, which I know many people have been saying, but with your background, you really know in detail what that means. So can you describe what you mean when you say President Obama weaponized our intelligence agencies for political attacks?
Well, this was in foxnews.com. They asked me to write this piece because they said there's a lot of confusion over this unmasking concept and what it means. Under the law, our foreign intelligence agencies aren't supposed to spy on Americans, but if they collect again, let's say to listen to a phone call of a Russian, and an American is mentioned, they're supposed to redact that name or mask it. Now, a senior official can ask for the name, but this person has to have a good reason. The justification has to go to NSA, and only a small number of officials are allowed to approve it. Now, we know from the House Intelligence Committee Republicans that Obama officials asked to unmask hundreds of Trump campaign and transition officials. And we learned last week that 39 Obama officials made 53 requests for General Flynn's name after the 2016 election until January 12th, which is just extraordinary. Now, the point I was making is that these requests are unusual. They don't take place very often. And there's a clear pattern here of Trump campaign and transition people being targeted. Now, I've been attacked viciously on the internet today where people say, well, how can you know who the mask name is? Unfortunately, Debbie, the system's pretty easy to beat. You can usually tell from the context of the intelligence report who they're referring to. Sometimes they'll be identifying information, like they may refer to the person as Person A, an official with a presidential campaign. That's the kind of thing that would be in the NSA report. And I think that, it's illegal to spy with intelligence agencies without a warrant on Americans. But if you were to ask for intelligence, let's say against a particular Russian ambassador, then go through all the results and look for likely meetings with Trump officials, and then have those names unmasked and leak them to the press, you found a way to spy on your political opponents without a warrant. And that's what happened here.
It is a truly astonishing story. And, I think that I have always had the greatest respect for our institutions in America. I love the idea of justice. I love the idea of rule of law. I love the idea of separation of powers. All those profound concepts are supposed to underlie American government and cause us to trust the FBI and the DOJ and the NSA and all these agencies, because we have that underlying trust that they're being used based on those principles and for right reasons. So in this case of the 39 of the 53 people who essentially 39 officials in the Obama administration asked for 59 unmaskings, you're saying that led to the identified person being unmasked as Lieutenant General Flynn. Is that right?
Well, this list that was released last week, and Rick Grinnell, the acting director of national intelligence, he was behind it being listed. They were a list of 39 people who asked for Flynn's name. Now, this is important because we know from Congressman Nunes, the top Republican of the House Intelligence Committee, that many, many other Trump aides were targeted for unmasking too. But these 53 requests were just for Flynn's name after the election until January 12th. And I mean, it's obvious that this was an effort to use our very capable foreign intelligence services by an outgoing administration to spy on officials of an incoming administration. It was just an appalling abuse of our national security agencies.
You know, I will say that some people who are just, I mean, I am with you all the way. Some people who are skeptical would say, well, they just happen to get caught this time. This stuff probably goes on all the time. We just don't know about it. In your experience, is that the case? Is this kind of thing really happen all the time, and that unfortunately just this time Obama's team happened to get caught?
Well, let me first raise a related point. The left is very worried about this. They're throwing up a lot of false arguments. They're saying, oh, well, 8,000 to 9,000 unmasking requests go in a year. There's many more under Trump. There's legitimate reason to unmask. Counterterrorism, counter-narcotics. Trump has a much more aggressive foreign policy on Russia and Iran. Unmaskings are not inherently illegal. Now, they're also trying to say, well, the law wasn't broken here. Well, that's actually true. It wasn't illegal to do this. I think it was highly unethical. And when you say they got caught, I think that's the big point. And they got caught because Congressman Nunes beat the bushes and found the evidence of all these unmaskings. And let me put this in context. I was John Bolton's chief of staff at State. He asked for 10 names to be unmasked in 4 years. His boss, Deputy Secretary of State Armitage, asked for 100 in 4 years. Samantha Power, Obama's ambassador to the United Nations, asked for 260 unmaskings in the final year of the Obama administration. I can't imagine why the UN ambassador would need to know so many of these, and we know 7 of them were for Flynn's name after the election. So I think this stinks, Debbie. There's something wrong here.
I could not agree more. Your numbers you said a moment ago, Samantha Power in a 1-year period asked for 260 unmaskings. And maybe this is, I have a vague memory of this, and I don't know whether you will know what I'm talking about, but wasn't there didn't it become obvious that in addition to all this unmasking requests, there was a change made toward the end of the Obama administration, which permitted names that were unmasked to be more widely spread among the intelligence agencies? Do you recall that?
There were 2 changes made in sharing intelligence in early 2016 and in very early 2017 that allowed more people to make these requests. At least that appears to be the intent. The person who asks for an unmasked name is still not supposed to share it with anyone else. That name is supposed to be released exclusively to the requester. But I understand these changes allowed more people to make these requests.
Yeah. Okay. So that was 2 changes. More people could make them.
Yes, that's what I understand.
Okay. Yeah, I remember reading about that. Just thinking, it just seems like one of the steps you're setting to you're spreading within Washington more knowledge about the people you're trying to undermine. The political, I guess, it's the political use of the legal tool of unmasking that seems to have happened here. Is that right? Is that fair?
I don't know how. I think that's true to some extent, but also there was much broader sharing of intelligence that would have mentioned the Trump aides in other ways, CIA and NSA and FBI reports. And, you don't have to do the unmasking to know that this is a likely Trump aide. I mean, in December of 2016, the Russian ambassador is probably going to be meeting with Trump transition officials. So if you ask to see Ambassador Kislyak's intercepts of his communications, more likely than not, a lot of them are going to be Trump aides.
It's simply amazing. I would turn to another topic and we've been on this periodically in this show, but all of the time, and I would just say all of the time where there was an ongoing investigation by the FBI, the Mueller investigation, and was there Trump-Russia collusion, I always said politically, even during that time, my sense was Russia would rather have Hillary be president. I didn't even see the reason people would assume it made sense that Russia would want Trump to win, because Trump is a scary unknown entity to the Russians. He's still unpredictable, and yet Hillary was the one. She was not tough as Secretary of State. She's more a leftist, like they're leftists. So I always said the whole premise doesn't even make sense. But what's come to light recently is it appears that John Brennan, that head of the CIA, had some role in becoming aware of intelligence that suggested that Putin was backing or more favoring Hillary over Trump. And yet he suppressed that. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I broke this story for Fox News Opinion on April 22nd, and it was based on a briefing I got from House Intelligence Committee Republican staff. They did a long investigation of the intelligence community's analysis of Russian meddling in the election. Basically, they were investigating a January 2017 intelligence community report that found that Russian meddled to help Trump win. Now, I didn't believe that, and you didn't believe that, and what they found was, in fact, there were three strings of intelligence. One, that the Russians didn't care who won. They just wanted to mess with our democracy. I don't know how reliable that information was. Two, that there was information that the Russians wanted Trump to win, but this information was very weak, and intelligence analysts did not want to include it, but it was included over their objections by John Brennan. And three, there was very strong intelligence that the Russians wanted Hillary Clinton to win because she was a known quantity. And they wanted Trump to lose because he was an unknown quantity. And they were worried he would bring anti-Russian hawks into the government with him. This strong intelligence was excluded by Brennan over the objections of CIA analysts. Now, this is in a report that has been sitting at the CIA since September of 2018. And I hear there's a good chance that acting DNI Grinnell will release it maybe this week.
Any idea, any plausible answer John Brennan would give for what you just described, that over the objections of others, he kept that information out, related to the idea that Russia actually wanted and preferred to have Hillary win? What would be his defense of that?
Well, you know, I've never seen someone so angry and so hateful as John Brennan. I don't want you to go on Twitter to see his tweets and his attacks on Trump, but unhinged is putting it mildly, the attacks he makes on Trump. This hatred of Trump did not begin on Inauguration Day. And I think it's clear that Brennan was campaigning against Trump throughout 2016, that he tried to push the Steele dossier into intelligence analysis, into FBI requests for FISA warrants to destroy Mr. Trump as a candidate, and then to destroy his presidency after he won. So I don't know how Brennan's going to explain it. I'm hoping that John Durham in his investigation will come up with some conclusive evidence of how Brennan was key to the Obama administration's efforts to weaponize intelligence to destroy Mr. Trump and his campaign.
I could not agree more. And honest to goodness, I think it's just amazing to think the times we're living in, the very high level official, the head of the CIA, apparently politically, we'll wait till all the facts are out, but apparently politically operating, to many people's view, orchestrating all of this effort to vilify President Trump, undermine him. I mean, is there any parallel in American history you know of, or your involvement in the intelligence agencies, any parallel to this political maneuvering that seems to have occurred starting at the top of the CIA?
Well, according to official Washington, the mainstream media, our intelligence agencies are non-political and don't meddle in intelligence. That isn't true. I'll say they're less political, but it's always been hard for them to stay out of politics. When I was working for the Reagan administration, intelligence officers worked against Reagan. When Clinton and Obama was president, they bent over backwards to promote his policies, to promote Obama's fraudulent nuclear deal with Iran. That's why we need strong leadership. The president has to put really good people on top of these agencies to keep the bureaucrats honest, to remind them to keep their politics out of their work. I think Dan Coates was a disaster as director of national intelligence because he did not do this. I think John Ratcliffe, as our new director of national intelligence, he's going to follow up on what Rick Grinnell started and try to flush politics out of our intelligence community.
I most certainly hope so. It's just a scary thought because really the era of Obama was in our country the most leftward leaning, or in my perception, leftward leaning we've ever gone. And the idea that when you serve as president, you do fill high level positions in all sorts of agencies. You fill them in justice, DOJ, state, a variety of agencies. And if you fill them with people who are on your more leftward agenda, your left-wing agenda, and then you have a president come along who's more of a pro-America agenda. I mean, I don't know how I don't know where I'm going with the question is, how do you root all that out? What do you do as president to root out that all of the thinking that is antithetical to the policies you, the new president, want, that you ran on, that you promised the American people you would do? What do you do about all these high-level people in these agencies who are pushing things in the wrong direction?
Well, I first want to tell you that the president knows this problem. I've had the privilege of actually discussing it with him, and I know he wants to fix it. I know from my experience in government that Democrats are very good at burrowing in, getting their political appointees to be named careerists, and promoting careerists to senior positions who will remain and continue to push Democrat policies after they leave. You know, when a new president comes in, you have to do a house cleaning. You have to get rid of the political appointees, and you have to find the careerists who are put there who are going to oppose everything that you want to do. And look, I think Donald Trump has been a great president in most ways. In staffing, there's a lot that I think he should have done, but he realizes that, and he's moving very quickly to address the staffing problem. I think at the beginning he was given some bad advice by some people who maybe he shouldn't have listened to. Rex Tillerson at State, I think, was a disaster. So was H.R. McMaster at the National Security Council. But I think things are a lot better now, and I have very high hopes for the second term.
I am so glad to hear that. I have that second term part, definitely I have very high hopes for that, the second term. And also, I've always thought it's interesting when you're President Trump, he didn't have a 20, 30, 40-year history in Washington, in the State Department, in the House or Senate. He didn't have all the deep tentacles of connections. And so he had some allies or people who were supporters he could bring in, but that was a big thing for him to overcome. No political background, elected in a monumental election, really a course-correcting election in America, course-correcting away from radical leftism back to the American playing field or on the American course. And that was probably an overwhelming task to think about when you get there. Who are all the people you have to try to replace, and where are they burrowed in, where are they hidden? So I give them a lot of leeway or something about the idea you don't even know where to start, and you got to get started doing your agenda. But I am thrilled to hear, as you've spoken with him, that President Trump is on to this issue very clearly and is going to try to take steps when he's reelected. That is excellent news.
And he's moving on it now, but I think there will be big changes in the second term.
Love hearing that. Fred Fleitz, thank you so much for taking time to join me today on America Can We Talk.
Great to be here. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, friends, that is a great patriot. I didn't do a long enough introduction. He has had a fabulous career, and it'll be up on our website. There's a bio of him up on our website, americacanwetalk.org. Served under Bolton. Hey, I know we're done with him, but just think of those numbers before I turn to my next topic. The kind of the numbers on unmasking requests. Bolton made 10 requests, John Bolton, in 4 years. Samantha, for her last name, Samantha worked for Obama, made 260 in 1 year. These are people who use our intelligence agencies, Samantha Power, use our intelligence agencies for the political agenda, and it is wrong, and it needs to be just cleaned out as much as we can.